If you build it, they will come. Sounds great, doesn't it? You just build a business and people show up and say, hey, I want your stuff. Unfortunately, that's not how it works in reality. I'm sorry. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it does not work in business and it does not work with your content. I understand there is a certain amount of truth to if you build great content, people will find their way to it because that's the nature of SEO, right? That's how Google works. It finds great content that resonates with its audience, that matches the searches that they're looking for, and pairs you up with them. So to a certain extent, that's true. But the flip side is on the person consuming the content. Think about all of the content that you consume every day. There's the content that you actively seek out, and then there's the content that's just getting shoved at you all day, every day, whether you like it or not. Your email inbox alone, I'm sure, is astronomical, right? We all look at that number and go, I have how many unread emails, right? We've all been there. And then there's social media, and then there's everything else people use to try to get your attention. So, how do you break out? How do you break out through all that noise and tell people, no, my content really is worth your time? So, I have 10 tips for you. First and foremost is SEO, our favorite search engine optimization. Um, there, again, there is a certain truth to if you build great content, people will come because that's what Google does, right? They go to Google, they go, okay, how can I find what it is I'm looking for? Show me the way, Google, right? And Google goes, it's right over here. So, yes, people are using ChatGPT more. Google is still the dominant search engine. It is far from dead. It is far from out of the running. There is still the majority of online searches are happening on Google. We can talk about how to show up on ChatGPT. That's a whole other conversation, whole other blog post. We're just going to table that for now. You can reach out to me if you have questions about that because I'm happy to geek out about that. Right now, we're just going to focus on creating great content with those keywords and making sure it's formatted to make the again, Google happy, but there's also a fair amount of what makes Google happy also makes the chatbots happy. So it doesn't have to be an either or kind of thing. Number two, social media marketing. You got to get out there. You got to push content out there where people are already hanging out. Now, this can be advertising on social media. It can also just be blasting out on social media. There's a variety of ways to get people to follow you on social media. Again, that could be a whole other video, so we're not going to focus on that here. My favorite way is to partner with influencers in your industry or related industries. Find someone who already has a decent following, who is the people following them are the people you also want to follow you. Share their stuff, comment on their stuff, invite them to share your stuff. This can also take the form of guest blogging, guest newsletters. Ask how you can collaborate and create content for each other and for each other's audiences. Great way to get in front of them and to get in front of that audience. Because if you can convince them to share your stuff, they already have that know like trust factor. I call it the KLT factor. They already have that KLT factor with their audience, right? So now if someone they know like and trust is saying, hey, look at what this person is saying, they really know their stuff. It builds in so much goodwill for you and so much trust for you because of who is pointing them your way. So take advantage of that. Email marketing is a great way, again, and spread the word about your newsletter. You can also make sure that your newsletter is on social media. Make sure that you're pushing it out every chance you get, and again, getting those partnerships so you can say, hey, you want this great tip from this influencer in my industry? Well, you just might want to check out my newsletter because that's where they were talking about 10 ways to do such and such. So email marketing is also a great way to push out content to the people who are interested in it. And I've talked about this before as far as making the most of your newsletter. But if someone, for example, if you do financial planning and someone wants to know about saving for college and how much they need to save and what are their options there, a great way to make sure that you are engaging that prospect is to continue to send them content on that topic. Maybe they're not ready for retirement. Maybe they're just now starting their family, and that's really their focus right now is just getting their kids through college, and they'll worry about retirement later. So maybe retirement planning is not really something that is forefront in their minds right now. So if you send them that content, they're going to delete it. But if you send them stuff about college planning, that's stuff that they're going to open. So take advantage of the fact that there are people in your funnel who are interested in what you're doing. They're not yet ready to buy. They're still kind of on the fence, or maybe they know they need to buy eventually. They're just not ready right now. Sending them content that tells them how awesome you are and explains to them how they can do this, that, and the other is a great way to convince them that you're the one they want to work with. And again, remind them that you exist. Because if you leave it too long and you don't reach out, there's actively reaching out. There's the, hey, are you ready to work with us yet? Which no one likes sending those emails. No one likes getting those emails. Instead, send them stuff that has information that's valuable about the topic that they're interested in, that they already expressed interest in. Advertising is always a good one, and that runs the gamut, right? That is everything from social media advertising, which is a great way to grow your audience. Google ads is another one. We don't yet have ChatGPT ads, but I'm sure they are on their way. So if you are watching this at a time when that's a thing, maybe that's something that you want to consider. Even down to, TV and billboard ads are still a thing. I don't work with anyone for whom it makes sense to pay for those things, but who knows? Maybe your audience is listening to a lot of podcasts. Maybe you can getting on a podcast, guesting on a podcast is a great way to get out and grow your audience as well, but also advertising on those podcasts might be a more affordable option for you rather than paying a big radio network or a big TV network for their airtime. Leveraging online communities, so your Facebook groups, your LinkedIn groups, and your Reddit, Quora, those are online communities where increasingly, especially in certain subpopulations, again, know your audience. If your audience doesn't use Google or ChatGPT to search for stuff, there are a lot of people who go straight to a site like Quora or Reddit, or they go to a certain subreddit and they go, hey, what do I need to know about such and such? Or I'm experiencing this problem. Does anyone else have experience with this problem? What do I do about it? Being active in those communities and saying, oh, yes, I deal with this all the time. And you know what? I just happen to have written a blog post about it. It's right over here. Or I made this video. Or I have this infographic that really lays it out in a way that really helps it make sense. Let them know about that. That is a great way to don't just pop the link in there and disappear. Engage with those people. It is kind of a social, I don't think it's technically social media, but it is kind of social in that there's a lot of back and forth on those sites. So engage with people who have expressed interest. Let them know that you're there to answer their questions, because again, that's how you're going to build trust in those communities. And then when it makes sense, drop your link. Don't just go in there to drop a link and then disappear. Make sure it's relevant to the conversation, and actually engage in the conversation. Your contribution to the conversation cannot just be dropping a link, because that's not contributing anything. That's just spam. Make sure you are actively engaging in a conversation, then include your link. Partner with influencers. I talked about this for social media marketing, but it's true for guest blogging. It's true for podcasting. Again, if your people are listening to podcasts, if they're listening to certain podcasts, that is a great way to get your name out there. So I know I've been on 30 some, I think I'm coming up on 40 podcasts that I've been on. So absolutely keep an eye out for that. Partner with those influencers, because podcast hosts are always looking for guests. It is the bane of their existence trying to get good, high quality guests for their podcast. So if you can hunt them down and reach out and say, hey, I'm an expert on such and such, would this be a good fit for your audience? Well, that's a great way to get in front of a whole lot of people. Just ask for people to share your content. I think we have this assumption that, again, if we create great content, people will come and people will share it. And that's not really true. It's not always our first thought, oh, I need to share this. If it strikes us as being really specific to someone, like if I just had a conversation with someone about how they're struggling to save for college, or they know they have all these options and they're not sure which option is the right option, and then I see something about it online, yeah, I am going to share it with that particular person. I'm not necessarily going to share it on my social media because that's just not something that makes sense for me. Um, but it's also, you're leaving it to chance that people think about that. And they don't. There are very few specific instances where that will happen, but for the most part, they'll be like, oh, that was great. And then they'll close out of it and they'll click on something else and you'll never hear from them again. Ask them to share with their audience and make it really easy for them to share. So include the social share buttons at the bottom of your blog posts. Ask people to share stuff on social media. Ask, that share button is right there. There's a reason that all the YouTubers say like and subscribe, right? It's because it's a great way for them to build their audience and build that visibility, because the more subscribers they have, the more people liking a video, the more the algorithm boosts that content. So ask for shares, ask for people to subscribe, ask for people to review your content, because that is also great for visibility and credibility. People read those reviews, and that is how they decide whether or not to engage with a particular piece of content. So yes, getting those shares is a great way to get in front of people, because again, they're sharing it to their audience. Their audience already knows, likes, and trusts them. And if they're saying, hey, this person over here is really cool, they're talking about this really cool topic, you should go check them out. They're much more likely to do that than if you just show up in their email randomly, or you show up on their social media feed randomly because you paid for an ad. It's much more powerful to get that referral. So do everything you can to encourage people who already love you and love your stuff to share your stuff with people who would also be interested. And my 10th and final tip is super obvious, I think, but it often goes overlooked, is create content that's actually worth sharing, because everything I told you will not matter if people don't want to share it, if people read the content and go, meh. So make sure that it's valuable. It's easy to read. It's well written. It tells a story so that, again, that makes it memorable. And make sure that it is written in language, not only that they understand, but that resonates with them. What is the language they tend to use? How do they tend to talk about this problem? That is the language that you want to use in your content, because that's what's really going to hit home for them. It's going to resonate with them on a totally different level from if you just use your language or your parents' language or corporate speak, which is the bane of our existence, right? Please don't use corporate speak. Use your clients, unless maybe your audience is high level, C-level corporate executives, right? And in that case, maybe some little bit of corporate speak might not be unwarranted. So those are my 10 tips for you. Create your content and then have that plan in place to distribute the content and share it with the world so everyone can know how awesome you are. That is it. If you have any other questions, please let me know in the comments. Please do like and subscribe. And you can get more content like this over at my website, AV as in my initials, Allison Verhalen. That is avwritingservices.com. And you can reach me directly with any questions. Always happy to chat. My email is info@avwritingservices.com. That's it. Have a great weekend. Happy blogging, everyone.